Hello everyone, your warm welcome to the series of Fortinet Firewall. So today we'll start with our first video of the introduction of how Fortinet Firewall works, what are the features of Fortinet Firewall. So this is just the basic PPT that I have created. Okay, hope you find it useful. Let's get started. Okay, so I'll show you the content. So we're going to discuss about the firewall basics, as in the basic firewall features, the introduction of the firewall, the traditional firewall, how it was, how it works, all those features. The second, stateless and stateful firewall. So this is also the inclusion of the above topic, as in the stateless and stateful. So before, the traditional firewall which was in the market was stateless, and we have the new, all the firewalls are now considered as stateful firewall. The third thing is next generation firewall. So this topic will going to help you out that why in today's world all the firewall are considered as next generation firewall. What are the features, what are the inclusion of certain defense, that due to that it is considered as next generation firewall. The fourth point is firewall features that you need to review. So this is all about the size of your organization. What firewall do you need to select for your organization? It depends on the length, it depends on your requirement, it depends on your employee level, it depends on your VPN session, it depends on your policy. So under this course of Fortinet Firewall, you're going to see all the content in regards with the working and everything of the Fortinet Firewall, the labs as well, the installation in EVENG. Okay, so I'll request you to please watch this video till the end, and please continue this course so that by the end of this course you will able to learn the exact working of Fortinet Firewall and also its troubleshooting. Okay, yeah, so let's get started. Yeah, so before we start with our firewall, I'm going to show you the basic topology, a basic network topology of any organization. This is the LAN and the WAN network and all. So with the help of that, we can see that where we need to place the firewall and how it works. So I'm just going to take a LAN network, okay, which is connected to the switch. The switch is connected to your router, and the router is connected to your ISP. The ISP who has the internet, right? So this will be our LAN network, this will be our WAN network, which is wide area network, right? So what before firewall, it works as in we are creating our policies, ACL, you learned it in your CCNA, which is access control list, where we are creating allow and deny statements, right? We are allowing, we are denying certain traffic. Let's say we'll take a network 192.168.10.0 network, which is our internal network. So any host whose IP is 10.12, we need to allow permit statement, right? Access control 10, and we are permitting and denying, and you must be aware, right? Because you already did it in your CCN as well. If this is just the basic prerequisite to have the firewall, right? So we are allowing HTTP traffic. So HTTP would be TCP, okay, port number 80, which is of HTTP, right, to any, like the destination would be any. This is our source, this is our destination, this is a port number, this is the TCP. For HTTP we use TCP, right? Okay, which works on port 80. So 443 is for HTTPS, right? So we are again permitting, okay, 10.10, okay, which is also TCP. So this is the way your basic working of your basic network environment. This is how your traffic flows from in to out and out to in. But the disadvantage of ACL is that every time you have to allow and to deny statements. If you want to allow the traffic from out to in, you have to allow, you have to create a statement, you had to you had to type all those statements. Okay, so to remove such problem, firewall comes into picture. Okay, so the basic, if for example, let's say if this is our topology, so where we need to place, we will going to place our firewall here. Okay, so we'll take first thing about firewall, the basic functionality of firewall when the firewall comes into existence. Okay, so this is our LAN network which is connected to our switch. The switch is connected to firewall. Okay, the firewall is connected to our router, and the router is connected to the ISP where we get internet, right? So this is our internet. This basically is our LAN network. This is our WAN network. Let's say our host, our inside network is 192.168.10.0/24. Okay, so I just want to tell you, I want to tell you that how traditional firewall comes into picture and what are the functionality the firewall serve. Okay, while they are into existence. Okay, so let's take this. Okay, so basically the firewall works as request and respond. Okay, so how request and respond we discuss under traditional firewall. So the request would be, you can see right, this screen is visible to you. Okay, so for example, if your LAN network, which is like if any of your host, let's say 192.168.10.10 wants to go to facebook.com here. Okay, so this is our facebook.com. It has any IP address as 131.78.47.1, okay, or 13, right? This is the IP address of Facebook. So to communicate, what a firewall do is that first, you must be aware about TCP three-way handshake, right? Which works on first the host will going to send the sing bit to the server. Okay, so that's why this is request and response. So first the TCP three-way handshake went as in, if you take layer 3, okay, which works on source IP, destination IP, source port, destination port, right? So we'll type, if our host is 10.10, if the destination is 131.78.47.13, okay, any of the source ports we take as 1024 from 65535, we can take any ports. Okay, and the destination port, if you want to go to HTTP, which is port number 80, or if it is HTTPS, then the port number would be 443. Okay, so this is the information which is sent from the browser to the server. So for first it went to the firewall. The firewall will check that under the policy whether it is allow or it's denied. Okay, then so this would be our SYN bit, right? Then it went to the server, and the server respond with SYN plus ACK. Okay, so under SYN plus ACK, the same thing added. Okay, as the layer 3 information would be, this is layer 4 information, right? So the source IP would be just opposite to the server, and then it is the destination IP would be the LAN network, the source port and the destination port, right? So the same information would be there as in, okay, and then the communication start with third bit as acknowledgement bit, which is sent from the host to the server back again. Okay, so this is the way the communication works, and it works as a request and the response. So the first, what I mean to say is that the first the host will going to request and the respond. Okay, now I also want to add one thing here, that the people will get confused in the terms. So it's better, I think, I'll give you this basics, as in what happened. Okay, so we'll start with, I'm going to show you your basic LAN again, the LAN topology that we already created and we have discussed, that this is your LAN network which is connected to switch, your host which is connected to firewall. Okay, your firewall is connected to your router and the router is connected to your ISP router, right? From where did you get internet? So this is your LAN side, right? This is your WAN side, right? Okay, so I already I discussed, as in it flows as in request and respond. Okay, so when the client requests the server, so there are two perspectives. One is client perspective and one is server perspective. So when the client send request to the server, is outbound for the client, because the packet is coming from outside, sorry, the packet is coming from inside to the outside network, could be outside, could be outbound for the client. At the same time, it is inbound for the server. The same thing, when the server respond back to the client, is outbound for the server, but it is inbound to the client. Actually, what happened, that some students will get confused about the traffic flowing uh, both the ways. Okay, so that's why I mentioned the client side and the server side, because both have their perspective of looking at the packets, right? So this is very simple. If you can take this, that if the packet is coming from inside network to outside network, could be outbound for the client, at the same time is inbound for the server, and vice versa. Okay, I'll also going to show you the PPTs that we have prepared. So you know this, if you can see, we already discussed about the SYN packet, where there is L3 L4 information which is sending from the client to the server, and the server is reaching sending back the SYN plus ACK and the ACK to initiate the communication, right? So then this is the stateless example. Okay, so in that this example, you are going to see that you can see here on the right hand side there's a secure internal network. So for example, if any host is coming from inside to the authenticated server, okay, so I'm sorry, I cannot use my pen. Okay, so let's say if your internal network wants to go to the authenticated server or any of your server, let's say if your web server which is outside, so we are using the HTTP service as port number 80. So you can see the below under security policy that it is written below that SYN packet. So SYN packet is sending from inside network to the outside, could be outbound, okay, as the destination port would be 80. And when the server is replying back to the client, so the first line, allow inbound, which is SYN plus ACK packet. Okay, so this is the way it has been mentioned over here as well. I have mentioned it so that it could be easier for you to grab the information, that how it works from in to out. Okay, at the same time, you can see the stateless firewall diagram, where I will also going to discuss about what is stateless and stateful firewall. Okay, but this is just the example I am adding here in the same image, so that could be easier for you to understand. So when your internet network wants to go to outside, it is written as the SYN packet, which is outbound. Okay, okay, at the same time allow inbound SYN plus ACK packet. Okay, so this is the way when the server is replying back, which is outbound for the server and inbound for the client. Okay, so this is the way the communication flow. Okay, now let's take the example of what stateless and stateful firewall is. Okay, so in terms of traditional firewall, we discussed about the flow of traffic. Okay, so the flow of traffic, which is basically the request and the response, right? Okay, then what happened, that the traditional firewall works on packet filtering, okay, but only using source IP, destination IP, source port, destination port. Why? Because they have only that much information. Under rules, under access point, we are just mentioning that. Now in next generation firewall we'll also going to discuss that what is the difference in that. Okay, so these are just the point of traditional firewall, that how traditional firewall was working and how it takes how we upgraded from traditional firewall to now the next generation firewall. Okay, before that I'll start I want to start with stateless and stateful firewall. Okay, yeah, so let's get into that. So we start with stateless and stateful firewall, right? Okay, so basically what stateless firewall is, that I think I already showed you this diagram. This is the most common diagram I'm using. Okay, right. We discussed as in this LAN, this is WAN, wide area network. Okay, so under stateless firewall, the difference is that it works only on ports, which is layer 4, and IP address, which is layer 3, as you guys were aware. Okay, so the stateless firewall just works on that we are mentioning the policies, okay, in the old traditional firewall, and it works like the same. Okay, another another point of stateless firewall is that, for example, if you want to allow the traffic from your LAN network to your WAN network, you have to assign one rules, right? The rules could be, ACL. You already learn it in your CCNA, right? Where we are allowing, permitting, and denying statement, right? So you must be aware that access list 10 we are, and then we permit IP this, then we are adding the TCP traffic. It is if it is HTTP, okay, which is port number 80. If it could be TCP port, if could be HTTPS, then could be port 443, right? So this is the way we are working using ACL we are performing. So the same thing this works as in stateless. Now in terms of stateful firewall, when the traffic, I said, when the traffic is flowing from inside to outside, okay, what it does is it maintain the sessions. Okay, for example, if this LAN host wants to go to the internet, if for the first time, okay, it will first check the policy. Okay, so the policy is same as the rules, okay, where we are allowing the host to that particular identified applications, or like same like that. So it provides session ID. Okay, why it provides session ID? Because what happened that, if for example, if later on, if the same policy, the same host wants to use it, okay, it will just check whether the session has been created or not. If the session was created, just allow directly. If it was newly a built session, as in a first, like it's a complete new session for the host. For example, if the complete new host in your organization wants to reach to the particular website, whether it could be any other website, let's say, so it provides first the session ID to that user. Okay, the next thing is that the stateful firewall will maintain the session database. Okay, so the database is where it maintain the whole information, the list of information in terms of that particular host. Okay, okay, the next difference I want to add is So we also want to add as, let me just type in, as stateful firewall is an intelligent, okay, because it's intelligent enough, as we just have to mention the policy once, okay, and it's bidirectionally allowed. For example, if your host, if you want to set any policies to for the internet, as in if your host is 192.168.10.10, if you want to allow facebook.com on port 80, and your source port would be 15151, okay, so it's bidirectionally allowed, means that if your packet is sent from inside to outside, would be reverted back directly. You do not have to provide them two rules, as in one for inbound and other is for outbound, right? So for the outbound and the inbound rules, there are two different rules we have to mention in stateless, but in stateful only the single rule is enough for bidirectional communication or two-way communication, we can say. So this is all the basic difference between the stateful and stateless firewall. Okay, now we move further to the next generation firewall. So we're going to see what next generation firewall is.